Welcome back to another podcast. Recently, I released the episode about Aztecs, where I delved into the civilization in great detail. Now, it's only natural to discuss the campaign in detail as well. I've played all 6 missions of the campaign and dove deep into historical research. I'll share the results with you in this short campaign series, so brace yourselves for gruesome sacrifices, evil invaders, and the downfall of the Aztec civilization, whose history is also told from a rather distorted perspective in this campaign. But before we get into the campaign missions themselves, let's back up and talk about where this campaign comes from. The Aztec Campaign was released with the add-on The Conquerors in the year 2000 and tells the story of the Spanish conquest of Tenochtitlan and the subsequent fall of the Aztec Empire during the reign of Montezuma II. The campaign is rated easy in the game's internal ranking, having just one sword, but I can already tease that the third mission on the hard difficulty level poses at least a small challenge if you want to complete every side mission successfully. Apart from that, the campaign plays out quite easily and still features many characteristics of those first, somewhat clumsy campaigns with very simple mission structures, minimal use of triggers, and a focus on creating just very aesthetic battles. Another goal of this campaign series is to highlight the historical peculiarities and some of the campaign's errors as I walk you through the individual missions. Interestingly, the story told here is not the true history of the Aztec downfall, but rather a myth. This became clear to me, partly because my knowledge of the Aztecs came from Age of Empires 2, only after researching for this campaign. But enough foreshadowing, let's start with the campaign's namesake. Montezuma II was the 9th ruler of the Aztec Empire, living from approximately 1465 to definitely 1520. As with many historical figures, there's rarely good, reliable documentation of when people were born, but we very well know the circumstances and the exact time of when people died. We also know that he became the ruler of the Aztec Empire in 1502 at the age of 37, which is currently my age. Which does make me wonder if I was able to lead an entire empire today. On the other hand, looking at some presidents today, it seems like all you need is to be just very loud and probably have a very good advisory staff to catch everything I mess up. Although Moctezuma was an absolute ruler, Aztec society was highly developed and hierarchical, with priests of all kinds serving him as advisors. However, this didn't prevent him from meeting an ugly demise just 18 years after becoming the ruler, which I will tell you about later in a different episode in this campaign series. During his lifetime, no one actually called him Montezuma II. This addition, the second, came later from the Europeans. Instead, he was known as the Younger to distinguish him from his predecessor. Moctezuma can be translated to "he looks stern like a prince," which immediately conjures an image in my mind. Contrary to what one might assume, he was not the son of his predecessor, but rather his grandson. Before his reign, he was the high priest dedicated to an Aztec god that has a very complicated name that I will butcher for you. But here I go and try my best. Huitzilopochtli. That might come off as very weird, but I think it's pronounced Huitzilopochtli. And that was the highest Aztec deity, a god of war and the sun. And he was also considered the patron god of the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan, which plays a significant role in this campaign. Although Moctezuma is the campaign's namesake and the story takes place during his reign, we never actually see him in the campaign. Instead, the story is told by an eagle warrior named Cuauhtémoc, Moctezuma's direct successor and the last independent ruler of the Aztecs before the Spanish conquest. In the game, Cuauhtémoc is also a unique unit, available since the HD version of the game, with the appearance of an elite eagle warrior, probably because his name translates to falling eagle. Unfortunately, we cannot play as him in the campaign as well, although maybe we do? Not as the hero unit, but in a later mission, the community speculates that we might play as actual Cuauhtémoc without his name being explicitly mentioned, however. But this is something I will tell you about once we've reached mission 4 in this campaign. However, if you do want to admire him outside of the scenario editor, you can find an impressive statue of him in modern-day Mexico City, proudly holding a spear. So it's Cuauhtémoc's voice you will hear in a second when the intro of the first mission begins.
Passed down to you by Cuauhtémoc, eagle warrior of Tenochtitlan. An omen appeared above the forest, the shape of an ear of corn, but blazing like daybreak. It seemed to bleed fire, drop by drop, like a wound in the sky. I am a warrior, not a priest, and knew not what to make of such a sign. I consulted with the seers and magicians to see if another great war was coming. But they answered only in riddles. The gods want more sacrifice was their answer. That was always their answer. Much of our empire of rainforest and volcanoes has been conquered in the name of sacrifice. The magicians tell us that we must make a sacrifice every single day for the sun to continue to rise. It took the relay teams 2 full days to carry my message the 200 miles to our city of Tenochtitlan. After 2 more days, my uncle Montezuma, emperor of the Aztecs, sent his reply. Montezuma's priest foretold that the god Quetzalcoatl might soon return from his long exile. How else to explain the omen? Montezuma ordered my warriors to increase their efforts to consolidate the rainforest between our land and those of our enemies. We must establish control over 4 shrines that are sacred to Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. Because the Aztec Empire is mighty and constantly expands, we have made many enemies. We must defend these shrines from our enemies in order to prepare for Quetzalcoatl's eventual return.
The omen mentioned by Cuauhtémoc at the beginning of the intro, which made the sky bleed fire, as he said, is most likely the comet visible in the year 1517. According to legend, this comet foretold the evil omen that Moctezuma's empire would finally crumble. These were not good tidings, to be fair, and there were 8 such omens, including a lightning strike in a temple, wildfires, and also a flood. But historical resources are far from clear on these omens. We're just actually not sure if these have existed or not, including the comet, so we should consider this an artistic freedom in the narrative. Cuauhtémoc also told us that the priests advised to offer more sacrifices to the gods, which is a very clear reference to the Aztecs' practice of appeasing their bloodthirsty gods with human sacrifices. The legend of the Aztec omens was accompanied by the prophecy that Quetzalcoatl would soon appear. Quetzalcoatl is the god of wind, the sky, and the earth, and he was also worshipped by the Aztec people as the god who created the humans. There is an Aztec legend claiming that Quetzalcoatl traveled to a mysterious place across the Atlantic Ocean, and before departing, he announced his return to reclaim his empire in the distant future. Cuauhtémoc hinted at this myth when mentioning Quetzalcoatl's arrival. Keep this in mind, as this myth is the pivotal point of the Aztec campaign, although some historians today believe this myth actually never existed, but was fabricated retrospectively by the Spanish as a historical myth to justify Cortés's actions, who was not on a conquest mission, but a reconnaissance one. Now let's dive deeper into the mission. Our goal in this first mission is to collect 4 relics and placed them in 4 different monasteries dedicated to the god Quetzalcoatl. We must first capture these monasteries, but fortunately, their locations are indicated on the map from the start of the mission. We can only advance to the Castle Age and never have more than 75 units, so there's quite the limitation. Our 3 opponents want to destroy our monasteries, so we must defend them at all costs. Even if one of the 4 monasteries is destroyed, we lose the game and have to start again. Cuauhtémoc mentioned that our opponents are hostile due to our years of expansion, which is a reference to the actual and continuous and relentless expansion of the Aztecs in the region, what is now present-day Mexico, during Moctezuma's reign, actually that of his predecessors. So we face 3 opponents. The Tlatelolco are in the west and are also represented as Aztecs. This is fitting as this name was given to them by the Aztecs, translating to where things are hidden. Today, we know this region was extremely influential in terms of art and pottery. Then there's also the Tapanaca, who are located north of our settlement. Although represented as Maya, they spoke the Aztec language and shared many cultural similarities with the Aztecs. The name refers to their mythological city of origin, Tepano, with Tepan meaning over the stones. They lived on the western shore of Lake Texcoco near Tenochtitlan, which was the Aztec capital and was built on artificial islands on the west side within the Lake Texcoco. Finally, there are the Xochimilco in the far north of the map, also played by the Maya. This name, also given by the Aztecs, translates to flower field, which, in my opinion, just sounds very utopian. Before the Aztecs conquered Xochimilco, it actually was a city-state governing itself. Today, 14 indigenous tribes of people still live there. We're starting in the feudal age in the east of the map and begin producing villagers. We gather food from surrounding berries, wild boars, and turkeys. There's plenty of food. And we are also surrounded by a dense jungle, small bodies of water, and a river to the east. Our settlement is built in a large clearing with numerous gold and stone deposits nearby, so we won't be lacking resources for ages.
I hear the growl of the jaguar. Is this a bad omen?
A group of jaguars roam our city, and we hunt them down before they can attack our villages. As we expand our economy, archers and eagle warriors from the north attack us. We repel them with our own eagle warriors and start gathering stone just for defensive purposes. Upon reaching the Castle Age, we build a castle and produce jaguar warriors, as swordsmen from Xochimilco can easily defeat our eagle warriors, and we need a counter to them. In the south and the center of the map, we capture the first 2 monasteries and place the relics inside of them, which are conveniently located right next to the monasteries, providing a comfortable passive gold income, which I'm actually quite glad about because we only have 75 pop space and therefore have very little villagers, and well, then it's kind of nice to have this trickle of gold. To the north, we build stone walls and monks who can convert enemy siege units thanks to researching redemption, just to defend against attacks and protect the monasteries, because our enemies are very keen on destroying them. Meanwhile, we gather an army of eagle and jaguar warriors, and rams as well, overwhelming the helpless Tlatelolco in the west. From there, we move north, defeating the Xochimilco and then the deeply entrenched Tapanaca, who had impressive castles destroyed by our rams. The battles are actually massacres, as our opponents can't withstand our army. Archers are destroyed by our eagle warriors, and infantry, who would counter our eagle warriors, are destroyed by our jaguar warriors. Between the 2 northern cities, we find the 3rd monastery and honor Quetzalcoatl again by placing the relic inside of the monastery. Finally, in the west, we find the 4th monastery, but first, we must build a dock to cross a river. Then, on the other side of the river, there's dozens of jaguars, and they are on the prowl, but our upgraded Jaguar warriors find only fresh hides for their new armors. Here we find the last relic, completing the mission once we garrison it inside our monastery.
When my warriors had captured the shrines and defeated the Xochimilcan and Tlactiluco, we made the long journey back to Tenochtitlan, laden with gifts for Emperor Montezuma, jade, feathers, and of course, prisoners. The sheer vastness of our city on the lake seems staggering after having been in the rainforest for so many days. Emperor Montezuma lives in the most sumptuous rooms of the palace with his wives and concubines. While we spoke, he drank frothing chocolate from a golden cup. Musicians played their drums and flutes, and masked women danced. When my uncle Montezuma first ascended the Great Pyramid many years ago to become emperor, there was a great celebration. Yet now, some question his leadership. He sometimes makes decisions slowly, and rarely does he lead the warriors into combat. Montezuma's priest informed us that Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, would soon return to Tenochtitlan to reclaim his kingdom. Since I had helped prepare for his coming, I was given a new obsidian macana and promoted to the rank of Jaguar warrior. There was more feasting and dancing that night. The air was heavy with perfume. However, I noticed as I walked down the steps of the Emperor's palace that the omen still hung heavily over the lake, spraying sparks over the midnight sky. So says Cuauhtémoc, Jaguar warrior of Tenochtitlan.
Cuauhtémoc reports, not without some pride, that he was promoted to being a Jaguar warrior for his help in preparing for Quetzalcoatl's arrival. This was likely due to the prisoners he brought back to Tenochtitlan, as warriors could be promoted after capturing at least 4 prisoners to be sacrificed to the gods. However, one had to choose between 2 paths, becoming an eagle warrior or a Jaguar warrior. It wasn't actually a promotion from being an eagle warrior to becoming a Jaguar warrior as described by Cuauhtémoc. I couldn't find sources indicating a rank difference between eagle and Jaguar warriors. On the contrary, all sources suggest that they were equal and equally esteemed by society. Nevertheless, we'll remember that he became a Jaguar warrior as this is relevant for a fun fact in the 4th mission. Speaking of fun facts, I'd like to close out this episode with 2 more. I noticed for the first time that each campaign has its own campaign symbol. This is something I have not realized until taking a very close look for this podcast. The Aztec Campaign symbol is a statue of a reclining man called Chacmol, used in religious rituals by both the Maya and the Aztecs. The man's body is upright, looking sideways with a bowl on his stomach, where ritual objects like, for example, tobacco, feathers, or incense, or, in the case of the Aztecs, the casual human heart has been placed in that bowl. Might as well put it in there if you have one at hand, huh? The oldest of these kind of statues found date back to the 9th century, so they have been used and in place for many centuries. In the game, the statue is not only the Aztec campaign symbol, but it also appears on top of the Aztec Wonder, and can also be placed as a decorative object in the editor by selecting Aztec civilization-specific statues. And here's the other fun fact for you. This first mission of the Montezuma Campaign was actually the only playable mission on the demo version for the Conqueror's add-on. There's no historical inspiration for this mission, but it was rather designed as a showcase to demonstrate the add-on's new features. The Aztecs as a new civilization, the new architecture and unique units, the beautiful jungle trees and also the animals. So it's no coincidence we saw the group of jaguars roaming through our settlement. And it's also no coincidence that there's plenty of stone to build castles, as the add-on, for the very first time in the whole franchise, introduced unique technologies to the game. Initially, just 1 per civilization, and with the Aztecs it was the Garland Wars. But before that, there were no unique techs in the whole game. This might seem unimpressive compared to today's campaigns and balance changes and DLC contents, but trust me, it was a big deal back then. We had played the game extensively for almost a year probably, and were eagerly waiting for new content and the add-on. The Aztecs were a civilization so different from anything else in the game that we immediately pre-ordered the add-on. As a kid, I probably even spent more time in the scenario editor than with the campaigns, and I have never played the skirmish mode as a kid because the AI would always just crush me. And my friends were usually better at the game than I, so when I was playing alone, I just played the campaigns, and I also dabbled around in the scenario editor a lot. Not really creating scenarios, but all the more just building beautiful maps. And the new possibilities for building beautiful maps with the add-on were probably reason enough for me to buy this add-on. So much, as you can see, has changed since then. But I think that's exactly why it's so much fun to dust off these old campaigns and give them the attention they deserve even over a quarter of a century later. So that's it for Mission 1. The next mission will follow shortly. I'll probably release this campaign at a bit faster pace than other episodes, so it's not going to be weekly and the gaps will be a little shorter, so you can follow the story more easily. And I think the best way for you to stay updated is just to follow the podcast and subscribe to it in your podcast app of choice, so you will get a notification and instantly can listen to the episode. And that's it. I'll see you in the next one.